The Cairngorms of Scotland are a place of raw, untamed beauty. Their peaks rise like jagged teeth against the sky, their slopes cloaked in heather and rock, and their valleys carved by ancient glaciers. Among these mountains stands Ben Macdui, the second highest peak in the British Isles. It is a place of solitude, where the wind howls like a lament and the mist clings to the land like a ghostly veil. But for all its beauty, Ben Macdui is not a place of comfort. It is a place of mystery, of unease, and of a legend that has haunted its slopes for centuries. This is the story of the Big Grey Man, a shadowy figure said to roam the mountain's heights, a being whose presence chills the heart and stirs the imagination. The legend begins, as many do, with whispers. For generations, the people of the Highlands spoke of a presence on Ben Macdui, something vast and otherworldly. Shepherds tending their flocks on the lower slopes would glance nervously toward the summit, muttering prayers under their breath. Hunters, bold and brash, would return from the mountain with pale faces and trembling hands, their stories fragmented and strange. They spoke of footsteps in the mist, of a shadow that moved against the wind, of a feeling that they were not alone. But these were just stories, passed from mouth to mouth, growing with each telling. That is, until the day a man of science encountered the Grey Man for himself. It was the summer of 1891 when Professor Norman Colley, a respected mountaineer and scientist, decided to climb Ben Macdui. Colley was no stranger to the mountains. He had scaled peaks across the world, from the Alps to the Himalayas, and he approached Ben Macdui with the confidence of a man who had conquered nature's greatest challenges. The climb was arduous, the air thin and sharp, but Colley pressed on, his boots crunching against the loose stones of the mountain path. As he ascended, the world below fell away, the valleys swallowed by mist, the peaks rising like islands in a sea of cloud. When he reached the summit, the view was breathtaking. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the landscape, and the wind carried with it the scent of heather and stone. Colley stood there for a moment, drinking in the beauty of the scene when he felt it. A sudden, inexplicable dread. The air seemed to grow heavier, the silence deeper, as if the mountain itself were holding its breath. And then he heard it. Footsteps. Not his own, but something larger, heavier, echoing across the rocks. Colley turned, expecting to see another climber, but the summit was empty. The footsteps continued, slow and deliberate, as if something massive was pacing just out of sight. Panic gripped him. Colley, a man of reason and logic, found himself fleeing down the mountain, his heart pounding in his chest. He did not stop until he reached the safety of the lower slopes, where the oppressive presence finally lifted. Years later, he would recount the experience, his voice trembling with the memory. "I am not a nervous man," he said, "but I can say that I was scared." Colley's story spread quickly, and soon others came forward with their own tales of the Big Grey Man. Some described a figure over 10 feet tall, with long, gangly limbs and a face obscured by mist. Others spoke of a shadow that loomed in the fog, a shape that seemed to dissolve when approached. But the most common thread was the feeling of dread, an almost supernatural fear that gripped the heart and refused to let go. It was as if the mountain itself had come alive, its spirit manifesting in the form of the Grey Man. The locals, steeped in the folklore of the Highlands, had their own theories. Some believed the Big Grey Man was an Am-Fear Liath Mór, a spirit of the mountain, neither good nor evil but fiercely territorial. Others whispered of an ancient curse, a punishment for those who dared to disturb the mountain's sacred ground. And then there were those who dismissed the stories as mere superstition, the product of isolation and the eerie beauty of the landscape. In the years that followed, the legend of the Big Grey Man grew. Climbers and hikers continued to report strange occurrences on Ben Macdui. Some spoke of a shadowy figure glimpsed through the mist, while others described an overwhelming sense of unease that forced them to turn back. The mountain seemed to take on a life of its own, its slopes cloaked in mystery, its summit a place of fear and wonder. Scientists and psychologists began to take an interest in the phenomenon, proposing rational explanations for the legend. They suggested that the Big Grey Man was a hallucination brought on by altitude sickness, exhaustion, or the peculiar acoustics of the mountain. The footsteps, they argued, could be an auditory illusion. the sound of one's own steps echoing off the rocks in a distorted manner. But these explanations did little to dispel the fear. For those who had encountered the Grey Man, the experience was all too real. They spoke of a presence that could not be explained by science, a feeling that went beyond mere fear. It was as if the mountain itself had a soul, a spirit that watched and waited. Even today, the legend of the Big Grey Man endures. Ben Macdui remains a place of mystery, its slopes shrouded in mist, its secrets guarded by the Grey Man. Climbers and hikers continue to venture to its summit, drawn by the challenge and the allure of the unknown. Some return with stories of their own, tales of shadows and footsteps, of a presence that defies explanation. Others return with nothing but the memory of the mountain's beauty, untouched by the Grey Man's shadow. But all who climb Ben Macdui carry with them the knowledge that they are not alone, that the mountain is watching. As the sun sets over the Cairngorms, casting the peaks in hues of gold and crimson, the shadow of Ben Macdui stretches long across the land. The wind whispers through the heather, carrying with it the echoes of footsteps and the faint, haunting presence of the Big Grey Man. Whether spirit, guardian, or figment of the imagination, the Grey Man remains a part of the mountain's soul, a legend that will endure as long as the mist clings to its slopes and the wind howls through its crags. And so the story of the Big Grey Man of Ben Macdui continues, a tale of fear and wonder, of the known and the unknown. It is a story that reminds us of the mysteries that still linger in the world, waiting to be discovered, or perhaps best left undisturbed.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more.